I've seen a lot of AI slop on the internet recently, and some of it's getting weirdly convincing. But is AI actually ready to compete in the big leagues? Today, I'm building a Minecraft starter fortress from scratch, and putting my build head to head against Claude Opus 5. Stick around to the end of the video to see what Claude actually built, and make your prediction now whether I can defeat Claude in this build battle. To make this as fair as possible, I gave Claude one prompt with the dimensions, the requirements, and the exact building area. I wanted to give it enough freedom to actually design something without letting it completely cheat its way through the challenge. And the crazy part is, Claude wasn't just telling me what to build, it generated the build itself. The full prompt will be in the description below. Here's the arena, two identical 25 by 25 block plots. The right side is where I'm going to be building, and the left side where Claude will build. Let's go over the design requirements. The build should include a defensive perimeter, a main entrance, a watchtower, a central fortified house, a storage area, crafting and smelting area, some type of food source, a courtyard, a blacksmith or an armory, interiors, and exterior detailing. I feel like these requirements are going to be harder for me to keep track of than they are for Claude, so we're going to have to make a note throughout the build of which ones we've included. I started with the most important part of any peaceful starter home. A giant trench, but not a normal trench. That felt a little too friendly. So naturally, I decided to fill the entire thing with lava. Next up were the watchtowers. I wanted 4 of these, one on every corner, so the fortress actually felt defensive instead of looking like somebody put a house behind a wall. The first one basically became the template. Once I had the proportions figured out, I copied the same basic design around the other 3 corners. And this is really where the build started to look less like a construction site and more like an actual fortress. I didn't want these towers just to be 4 giant rectangles, so I started adding depth, supports, and a little bit of variation around the edges. Tiny details, but they really make a massive difference. I decided to add a roof to each one of these watchtowers, and I went with something a little taller and more medieval. Once the first roof worked, I brought that design over to the other towers. At this point, if you had to choose based only on the fortress shape so far, would you bet me or Claude? Next, I connected everything together with the main defensive walls. I kept them tall enough to feel fortified, but not so tall so that the entire build turned into one giant stone box. And this part was mostly about getting the proportions right. The walls had to connect to all 4 towers, leave enough room for the courtyard, and still give me space for the central house. Remember, I only had a 25 by 25 block area. There's basically 0 room to waste. Once the walls were in, I could finally start making them look intentional. I added a little texture, some depth, and enough variation so that the whole perimeter didn't look completely flat. And now I had the shell for my fortress finished. The entrance needed something special, so I built a little defensive system that could drop lava directly on the front gate. Unfortunately, I forgot that wood burns near lava, so I had to redo the front bridge. At night, we can press this button and lava will dispense to keep mobs out. Once that was complete, we could move on to the central fortified house. I wanted to keep this more like a starter home, but make it more of a medieval feel. So instead of building something huge, I kept the footprint relatively small and built upward. That gave me enough space for the courtyard and some of the other requirements. I added a little texture and depth to break up the walls, and honestly, this is the point when I start to feel pretty confident about my chances, which is usually when something goes wrong. One of the requirements was a blacksmith or an armory, so I squeezed this little blacksmith into the courtyard. It actually fit the fortress surprisingly well, and more importantly, I can check off another one of those requirements. And obviously, if there's a blacksmith, it needs a chimney. I needed a food source, so I decided to plant some carrots inside of the walls. Carrots are usually my go-to food source in survival. I then moved inside and started diving into the central house design. On the first floor, I thought it would be best to add in our storage area here, so I created a row of chests. I also created a crafting area. This is for that easy access as well. And lastly, I created a hidden storage room so that you can access a lot of your rare materials. Upstairs is the main bedroom. I wanted this part to feel a little warmer than the rest of the house, so I added a lot of decorations on the wall. You'll see there's a lot of library bookshelves, some flower pots, some mob heads, and also some paintings. I've also added in our netherite armor next to our bed, just in case we have to jump out in the middle of the night. You can walk along the upper fortifications and move between the different towers. You can also look down into the courtyard, which I thought was pretty cool, and this is really something that I wanted from the beginning of the build. I didn't want just the walls to be for decoration, I wanted to actually feel like a fortress, but also explorable. And this is the final build. I even added some greenery around the outside because nothing says friendly neighborhood starter home like bushes surrounding a lava trench. Being happy with my build doesn't mean I won the competition, because now we finally get to see what Claude did, and genuinely, I have no idea what to expect. And now, we move on to Claude's side. Same 25 by 25 block build area, same requirements. Let's see what Claude came up with. I gave it the exact requirements we went through earlier, sent the prompt, and waited for the finished build file. And apparently, Claude didn't just build a fortress, it named it Raven's Gate. And when I loaded Raven's Gate into the world, this is what showed up. Honestly, this does not look bad at all. Like, I do see there are some areas on here that it could have touched up and done a little bit better, but just generally, I mean, it's pretty decent for a starter home. I also feel like we interpreted the prompt in a very similar way. We each created some of those corner watchtowers and used some of the same color palettes. I also think that Claude did pretty good on some of the variation and texture around the build. I really like this front entrance area, although I do like my lava entrance a little bit more than this. But I mean, when you enter in through here, this is pretty neat. I mean, your eyes start to wander when you're going through here, just looking at all the different details. I don't mean to hype up Claude at all, but I think it did a pretty good job. I mean, look at this well area and some of the crop fields. I just did carrots, but they decided to include in some wheat and some beetroot, I think. And just some of the details throughout are just really good. I mean, there are some areas that it could improve upon, like there's an armor stand just going through the floor, but just some of the details and the little villager workstations, I mean, they're all pretty nice and they fit in well here. Again, there are some areas that it could have done better, but just overall, a pretty good build. I think I forgot to add in a kitchen into my build, so I think Claude has me beat there. But what is a cow doing inside of the kitchen? And also, there's a horse just going through the floor right here. And the stairs leading up to the second floor were blocked by some stone bricks over here. I do really like how the second floor turned out. I like the carpet and some of the villager workstations like the loom and the lectern, and just a small little enchanting area, which I didn't include in my build. It took me a while to find the bedroom because the entrance is actually blocked by the tree out in the courtyard. But once I was able to find it, I did notice that there were some holes in the ground and the walls on the outside, but we'll excuse that. Let me know in the comment section below who you think won this build competition. And I'm also planning to try out a Fable 5 build competition here soon, so make sure to subscribe.